How about that? That's almost as scary as Chewbacca. Well, we're going to give this an attempt at a little bit of an online rehash of the stuff that we should have covered in school. But since Mother Nature is keeping us all at home, we're going to have a little AP Euro fireside chat. When you take your AP US class next year, you'll learn all about FDR's fireside chats and the significance of those. I'm no FDR, but as you can see, I am sitting beside the fire. So we will have our first fireside chat dealing with Italian unification. And then hopefully tomorrow, if this goes well, I'll come back and we'll talk a little German unification. And then, most importantly, we'll figure out how to effectively compare the work of both Camillo Cavour and Otto von Bismarck. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Can hide me a little bit. We don't necessarily need me. All right, this is going to be completely unedited. We're just going to go with it. I haven't really quite figured out how to bleep anything, my inappropriate words. So yeah, it's going to be just like having me in class on any given period. So I don't have an audience here. There's always a chance of an interruption. A cat could go by, a kid could come in the room. Who knows? So just bear with me. Okay, so what I would hope that you are going to need to be an active participant in this little presentation. I do think it'd be a good idea to have your key concept workbook. Why don't you go ahead and open it? I think it was page 76, but it was the one we were working on in class, key concept 3.4.3, and we're going to focus a little bit on A, right? You're going to need to use that. Probably going to want to take a look at the notes that you have on there, because that will be helpful in understanding my explanations as we're going through it. I also think, obviously, you need a pen and pencil, and then most importantly, just give me your patience, as this is brand new to me. We'll just see how it goes. All right, and always kind of bring your willingness to learn. Most of us started this presentation over the last couple days, and we got through, hopefully, the Crimean War. We talked a little bit about the bigger picture of that and why countries like Britain, France, Prussia, Piedmont are getting themselves involved in a tussle between Russia and the Ottoman Empire. And of course, it has to do with the infamous Eastern question. Where will the European powers be when the Ottoman Empire falls? Remember, it's not necessarily a matter of if, it's just only a matter of when. Right? Another major consequence is that warfare, and especially military strength, is going to be a big part of our European countries' foreign policy as we move forward. One of the ones that I skipped forward a little bit in class that I think is pretty important to note when we have to compare Camillo Cavour and Otto von Bismarck, a key similarity is that they will both use this war to their advantages and to meet some political means. Camillo Cavour will come to this war as a country that really had no business being there. It was just a matter of he wanted to sit at the big boys table, and throughout the course of this war builds a good relationship with France. And Camillo Cavour, as we will see later, will develop that friendship, especially with Napoleon III of France, into an alliance that he will use against Austria. Later on, when we get talking about Bismarck, we will also take a look at how he uses the Crimean War advantage, especially the fact that Austria has lost one of its key allies, Russia, and how Bismarck will exploit that loss of an alliance to his advantage. When we're all said and done with this, and it could be back in class on Friday, who knows? Oh, Thursday, yeah, right. When it's all said and done, this is what I would hope that you will be able to do. Effectively analyze the similarities and differences in the methods used by Cavour and Bismarck to bring about the unification of Italy and of Germany, respectively. We started this, I believe we got to this in all of the classes yesterday, but on that sheet of paper, I think an effective tool would be to just take that piece of paper, split it into a T-chart. We're going to focus heavily on Cavour in Italy here over the next 15 or so minutes, maybe less, and then we'll come back with Bismarck. I like the T-chart because it's going to help you organize your thoughts, especially looking for similarities and differences, and being able to exploit those onto an answer, maybe even your first long essay question. All right, let's take a look a little bit. I'm going to switch gears here just real quick. I want to pull up the key concept that you have in your workbooks. Now, obviously, hopefully yours is filled with notes. But when we study Cavour, we got to know a couple of things, right? Obviously, we want to be able to compare Cavour and Bismarck because that's the goal that I have for you. But also, moving forward, we want to make sure that we fully understand this key concept, right? When these two countries are unified, Italy and Germany, we are going to see a major transformation of the balance of power. Germany will really do that. Italy will be a strong political power for a short period of time, but then they will kind of disappear. Germany will dominate our course and the European scene all the way through the end of World War II and even into modern day. All right, so we're going to focus on Camillo Cavour, right? To fully understand this key concept, let's take a look at it, right? Cavour's diplomatic strategies, combined with the popular Garibaldi's military campaigns, led to the unification of Italy. Remember, that is a straight fact, right? But now, to fully understand this, we want to take a look. What were those diplomatic strategies? That's where that term realpolitik comes in, right? How does Garibaldi's military campaign contribute to the unification of Italy? How will Cavour manipulate Garibaldi's military campaign to meet his political means? Garibaldi's political means, as well as we will come up and talk about, all lead to the unification of Italy. Okay, so let's go back to the conversation that we were having. Believe we got it all done yesterday, so I'm going to go really fast. This concept of Italian unification does not begin with Camillo Cavour. It really begins with this cat right here, the first of our two Giuseppes, and that is Giuseppe Mazzini. Giuseppe Mazzini, politician, journalist, really is the one that planted the seed for Italian unification before Cavour. Was a revolutionary, was heavily involved in the revolutions of 1848, found himself banned from various city-states throughout the course of his career. But he's really the one that gets that seed planted, especially in these northern areas, but his influence will be found all the way up and down that boot. The second one, as we'll talk a lot about coming up here, is our man in the red shirt, and that is Giuseppe Garibaldi. Also a heavy nationalist, right? Both Mazzini and Garibaldi are romantics, right? They're going to glorify the things that unite them more than separates them. They're going to try to glorify the Italian culture, the Italian language, the Italian religions, that brings them all together. They're going to romanticize Italians rather than the French that are in charge, or the Austrians, right? They're going to play up whatever angle that they can. Both are Republicans. When they both vision a unified Italy, they see it as a republic, not necessarily a monarchy, and that's going to be a little bit of a clash with Camillo Cavour, who's sitting up here serving the King of Sardinia, Victor Emmanuel. So again, key thing to this, right, doesn't necessarily have anything really to compare with Bismarck, but just to fully understand Italian unification, understanding that Cavour picks up on an idea that was planted and flowering well before he comes to power. All right, our main focus is Mr. Neckbeard, as we all see Camillo Cavour looking all dashing in his beard. There, I'm back, I think, again. My beer is not quite as good as his. One of the things that I hope that you are going to be able to do, right, and this is where it's going to get slightly confusing because I'm not going to have this all typed out for you, but when you look at your key concept, what you should have in your notes from our textbook, you should have a pretty good idea how every single one of these terms, from liberalism, the Crimean War, the Treaty of Plombières, the war with Austria, and Giuseppe Garibaldi's red shirts, how Cavour will manipulate and use all of these to bring about Italian unification. The one, and I think I hit this in a couple classes yesterday, may not have gotten to all of them. The one that I really do want you to write down in your workbook, not just on that T-chart, is this Treaty of Plombières. This, your textbook never gives you the official name of it, but this is the alliance. It's a so-called secret alliance between Napoleon III of France and Victor Emmanuel and Cavour of the Kingdom of Piedmont. But in your notes, when you know how important that alliance was with France, especially when we go to start a war with Austria, I want you to be able to use the proper term, the treaty that forms that alliance, that Treaty of Plombières, or of course, how they say in France, the Triomphe Possible. Okay, one of the things in your T-chart, a graphic organizer that I like to use to kind of show how we're going to move in a clockwise manner. We're going to take all of those terms right here and we're going to kind of move through them one by one to show you how they will all eventually contribute to the unification of Italy. You're not going to see a lot of just straight definitions. You're just going to see the titles up here, and so you're going to want to follow along relatively close. If I get going too fast, just hit pause and rewind. That's one advantage that you have watching it online and not in class. There's probably a few of you that wish you could pause and mute me throughout the day. But as we all know, feelings mutual. All right, let's start. Again, our path. How does Cavour unify Italy? What paths does he use? How do they represent realpolitik styles? Camillo Cavour's decision to involve this little bitty country of the Kingdom of Sardinia, you're going to hear me refer to it as Piedmont and Sardinia, Kingdom of Piedmont. We're talking about this little bitty country right here, not a European power by any means, but his decision to join the other European powers in the Crimean War is critical. It's critical for number one reasons, because he recognizes that this little bitty country, there's no way this country is going to be able to unify this peninsula all by themselves, right? They don't have the political power, they certainly don't have the military power to conquer all of these lands. So they're going to need some help. They're going to need some alliances, right? He's going to have to manipulate a political situation, right? Especially considering France has control over the territory around Rome at this time. So he recognizes that if Italian unification is the goal, he's going to need a little help. All right, so that decision to get himself involved in the Crimean War puts them on the map, and it builds a relationship with France, especially with Napoleon III in France. All right. The other thing to gain support, you should have this in your notes. One of the things I asked you in your notes was what were his goals for Piedmont-Sardinia? We know the goal is to unify Italy, but how about that goal for just his kingdom? He knows if he is going to go on this political journey to unify Italy, he's going to have the support of his home kingdom. So, which is pretty unique for a prime minister serving a king, when everybody would assume that that's pretty heavily conservative, he does recognize the call for more liberal reforms, right? So he betters Piedmont and Sardinia economically and politically. He wants them to kind of stand out from some of the other Italian city-states in order for them to lead this unification efforts. All right. So what does he do? What are some of the key liberal reforms? He lowers tariffs. He uses the government to back the building of canals and railroads. All of this is meant to improve the economy of their country. Right? If your country is economically more stable and you're doing well economically, those people are going to be a little bit happier, right? A country with a strong economic base is going to be more willing to go into other political adventures, right? For example, when we kick in with this war with Austria, the fact that he's got Piedmont-Sardinia on strong economic grounds, he's gained the political support that he is going to need on the next step, right? And so he's building a little bit of political capital, so to speak. Here's that Treaty of Plombières, right? Again, remember that's that realpolitik. That's the realist in him. He recognizes that he is not going to be able to conquer other Italian city-states, certainly land that's controlled by Austria by himself. He's going to need an alliance with a powerful country. So, thanks to the relationship that was established by being involved in the Crimean War, Camillo Cavour, negotiates a treaty with France, right? What brings them together? Their common enemy, Austria. Everybody hates Austria at this time, except for Austrians, because, they're kind of digging it a little bit. Austria's got a control over this territory up in here, right? And as you can imagine, in northern Italy, this territory here is filled with Italians, right? And so what Cavour is going to do is try to pick a little bit of a fight with Austria, right? And again, he knows that he can't win that fight alone. So with this secret treaty, they come up with a deal. Now, what's in it for France, other than kicking Austrian butt? France is going to be given this territory up here, right, which borders the southeastern part of France. So they're going to get some territory there in Savoy, and they're also going to get the territory of Nice, Italy, which is right down here. So they're going to gain some more coastal lands onto the Mediterranean, which is always a possible thing. And for Sardinia, what they're looking at it is, if we're going to get the entire peninsula, we'll be okay. We'll give up some land here and here, right? So, another key part, and this is going to be really important because this is going to be a major similarity that Otto von Bismarck will do. Now that you've got this secret alliance, it's time to start picking a fight with Austria, right? And here is the key part. Austria becomes so annoyed with the efforts of these Italians in this northern area that they declare war first. That's critical to understand. Austria declares war. Why do you think that's so important? Are you talking to yourself? Are you answering it out loud? This is where it's really hard, because now it's really just me talking, and in class, even though you like to hear me talk, sometimes I like your answers, right? So again, I'm going to ask this question again. I want to see if you can answer it through the web, and maybe, I'm not going to hear you. We all know that, right? But again, think about it. I'm going to try to build an alliance that I'm just here to help my fellow Italians, right? But I'm going to cause enough of an issue that Austria is going to, as an empire should, crush any attempt for Italian independence. They have to do it, right? They can't just let this area become independent, because then what happens if their empire over here wants to become independent? What if the Czechs want to become independent? What if the Hungarians want to become independent, right? So Austria is kind of backed into a corner. How does this happen? Well, what Camillo Cavour does is sends an army into here, with the approval of Lombardy. We're just moving our troops around, nothing to see here, just kind of mobilizing troops a little bit. Well, Austria sees this as a total threat, right? And so in their preemptive mind, they are going to do what they feel they are justified as an empire to do and come in and crush those areas, right? Now, if you're Camillo Cavour, and this is what Bismarck will exploit so well, if Austria declares war first, you are simply just what? You're simply defending your territory or defending fellow Italians, right? So throughout this process with Austria declaring first, now Cavour's Sardinia and Victor Emmanuel look like they are the saviors. They're here to help fellow Italians getting rid of the evil Austrians. That is going to be critical because when this war is won, right, you're going to gain the support of many of these northern Italian city-states. So again, that War of Austria, politically manipulated, right? Thanks to the help of the work that I've done in the Crimean War, thanks to the secret treaty, right? I have the support of my people because of the liberal reforms that I have made that has put us in strong economic territory, right? So Austria thinks they're going to crush it. Piedmont-Sardinia, the war begins. They kind of step aside and say, hey, by the way, did you know we made this treaty with Napoleon III in France? And lo and behold, here comes like 20,000 Pierres marching across northern Italy to go war with Austria. In typical 20th century France fashion, Napoleon III, they don't stick around real long and they bail out, and Austria starts to win a little bit of the upper hand, but eventually they get tired and they back off a little bit. It's not a complete victory for either side, but it's enough of a victory for Piedmont to gain that gain that support of those northern areas. Okay, so we've been pushing about 20 minutes, right? We've got one really important part here, this last little part with Garibaldi's red shirts that I need to talk to you a little bit about. All right, so with the War of Austria, right, through that political manipulation, we're starting to gain the support of this area in the northern part of Italy, right? They're looking at Sardinia as, hey, this is the kingdom that could unify this peninsula. But we've got an alternate option here, and that is our man back here, Giuseppe Garibaldi. Giuseppe Garibaldi is another major revolutionist, has spent some time fighting for independence for various groups in South America, and now he's back, and now his vision of a unified Italian peninsula as a republic is going to come, he feels, through military conquest. So Garibaldi's army, known as the Red Shirts, because they wear red shirts, as you can imagine. He is going to start it in the south. He gets an army. It's a pretty sizable army of revolutionaries, of Italian nationalists. You know, they're well read in Mazzini. Garibaldi's got them all fired up. They successfully invade the football down here that the boot is kicking. They invade Sicily and successfully overtake Sicily and make the jump across, and they are slowly but surely marching their way up the boot, right? And they're conquering lands, and they're well on their way to unifying it, right? Cavour up here, again, he's political savvy. He understands that the ultimate goal is the unification of Italy. He does, however, know that it can't come under, if Kingdom of Sardinia is going to lead the way, it can't be Garibaldi. So he publicly condemns Garibaldi, but he secretly supports him. Could be through money, could be through arms. He will publicly state that he opposes Garibaldi's efforts, but behind the scenes, he knows that any work that he can do to conquering this land in the name of Italian unification, he might be able to manipulate, right? So, the race is on to get to Rome, all right? When Victor Emmanuel and Cavour see the success that Garibaldi is having, their army starts marching down, right? And we're going to get to Rome, and Rome, as we know, is going to be critically important. It's the home of the Catholic Church, right? We got a peninsula filled with Catholics. It's really the race to see who can get to Rome first. As Garibaldi comes marching up, right, and it looks like the armies are going, we have the potential for a major civil war to break out. This would not be uncommon, right? This is occurring around 1860. The American Civil War is breaking out at that exact time, right? So this is not unheard of on the world scene. Cavour wants to avoid that. So with Cavour and the negotiations and with the help of Victor Emmanuel, Cavour and Garibaldi, right, they get together, their political sides get together, and they come up with a decision like, hey, we all want the same thing, right? Is there anything that we can do? Garibaldi sees the consequences, the negative consequences, if he continued this fight. Perhaps a unified Italy won't be the case, or even if it is become unified, if he continues the fight and driven back out, then maybe he won't get any of those political reforms, and his dream of a republic will definitely be squashed forever. So, again, the key part of this that I want you to kind of know is that the political manipulation and political pressure put on by Cavour and Victor Emmanuel convince Giuseppe Garibaldi to put down his arms, right? And so with that manipulation and Garibaldi's decision to stop fighting, we basically have the event that will bring Italian unification. Now, as you can imagine, it's a lot more complicated, and there's some small little territories that take a little while, but for our purposes, this is what we have, right? So, this is a political cartoon, and I know period 2 we got to this one and we had a good discussion on it, but I'm going to have this discussion again with all the other classes. This is a really famous political cartoon that was published in Great Britain, but more than likely, hint hint, you'll see this again. Everything that you need to know about the conflict with, here is Garibaldi. Why do I know it's Garibaldi? He's wearing the red shirt, right? Laying down his arms, right? Notice the symbolism of the sword, right? He has put down his sword. He has stopped the fight for the number one goal, and that is to help us finally get the boot, that unified Italian boot. Again, symbolism of the boot, right? Italy. He is assisting Victor Emmanuel, right? This is Cavour's man. This is the king of Piedmont. He is now going to be the king of a unified Italy. Notice the symbolism here, right? He is in a kneeling position, right? He has given up his arms. He is submitting, but only in the name of helping the boot go on, right? It's also important to understand that this boot would not go on without Garibaldi, right? It would not go on without him kneeling, putting down his sword. And then the little caption, as he, that talks a little bit about the fight. Hey, if it's not going to go on, let's just try a little bit more powder. Could be shoe powder, but it's Garibaldi, so it's gunpowder, right? But again, that's symbolism of it. The other key thing that I want you to notice about this picture is who is not in the picture, right? This is going to be a major difference with Otto von Bismarck. Cavour is not in the picture. Cavour is doing all of his work behind the scenes, like a good realpolitik politician. Okay. And just about at 30 minutes. That's almost a class period by the time I'm done checking all of your notes, right? So again, I hope your T-chart, you've got some stuff. Maybe you made this web design, web graphic organizer, whatever the hell it's called. Maybe you did that. Maybe you just basically have these terms on your T-chart. But I'm hoping that you are going to, where'd that T-chart go, right? I'm hoping that you have some stuff down this left side, right? With specific information. Again, a nice middle school answer is to say something like, Cavour used political manipulation to unify Italy. You're not wrong, but you're nowhere close to an AP answer. I want specifics, right? How did the Treaty of Plombières contribute? How did the Crimean War contribute, right? How did the Giuseppe Garibaldi's red shirts commit? So, if you have that done, right, hopefully this helped you understand it a little bit. I was actually kind of getting a little bored with myself too. But we'll come back, talk a little Otto von Bismarck. I promise that part of the PowerPoint's got some surprises ahead of you. So stay warm. I think I have to... Oh man, I talked way through. Now my fire's dead. We gotta go put another log on the fire. Talk to you later, dudes.